This crowd rises to its feet. Vaccaro slammed it home. Garland left wing, free ball. Perfect! Garland one of the lane, lob to Mobley. Pow! And Allen blocked the shot at the rim. Pow! With the left hand and a foul.
Welcome to the Chase Down Podcast, part of the Cavs media family. I'm your host, Justin Rowan. The Chase Down is presented by Fubo, the official streaming partner of the Cavs. Watch over 350 channels of live sports and TV, including FanDuel Sports Network without cable. There's no cost and no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com/Cavs. Well, the Cleveland Cavaliers went into the All-Star break with a resounding win over the Toronto Raptors. Always fun to not only beat the Raptors, but to get out of there healthy. Everyone had their limbs. Everyone had their eyes. It's a great feeling. And joining me today, also a great feeling to be joined by my co-host, Carter Rodriguez. Carter, how you doing, buddy?
Doing all right, brother. It was nice to see, I still feel like I have so much regular season PTSD from those past Cavs teams who last game before All-Star break, everything's going well, and then everyone no-shows. And the fact that these last two games, they just kind of went out and put their foot on both teams' necks, I thought was really encouraging, really fun. And yeah, man, I just, I think I tweeted it before the game, but you look at this season, and they really have had two rough stretches all year. November 19th through November 29th, they lose 3 out of 5. Oh my gosh, sky's falling. Then January 12th through January 25th, they lose 5 of 8. And that's a little bit worse, but still, very normal run of play. Now, for the rest of the season, they are 39-2 outside of those two stretches.
Oh, my goodness.
And these prolonged stretches of complete dominance, that features a stretch of 15-0, 16-1, and 8-1, which is the one they're on right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's just been, and, that we've seen fake winning streaks. We've seen fake good stretches from teams. They are just right back to kicking the snot out of teams in games that are not competitive for, more than 5 to 8 minutes of the night. And that's just really, really encouraging and exactly the kind of energy I was hoping to see them take into All-Star break.
Absolutely. And, it's vindication for me. I said when they lost those 3 straight games that there's probably a winning streak right around the corner. You get a 4-game winning streak. You lose 1. You win, 8 out of 9. That's terrific. I love those stats, Carter. My favorite stat is that outside of the losses, they are 44-0.
Come on.
Hey, we're picking sample sizes.
I'm making a wider note about the sustained run of play. I'm not cherry picking.
And I am here to be a dick, and that's really what I bring to the table.
Here's my last favorite stat heading into the All-Star break, which is that the Cavs over-under in Vegas was 48.5. It opened at 47.5. They have 44 wins in the All-Star break. They almost hit the over before the break.
I think that they are 5 games away from clinching a playoff spot too.
That is indeed their magic number, Justin.
Which, that's just fantastic. A 5.5 game lead over the Boston Celtics heading into the All-Star break. That's tough to overcome.
15.5 game lead over the 6 seed Detroit Pistons.
Oh my goodness. That's, 5.5 games with 28 games left is tough to overcome. Basically, Cavs would have to lose 6 games more than Boston loses over that stretch. And they have consistently been playing at a better pace than the Celtics. That's how you get out to this kind of lead. And I completely echo your sentiment of how it was so nice to see them really put their foot down, close out this pre-All-Star game stretch so strongly. Do you think any of that has to do with bringing DeAndre Hunter in? Everyone's on their best behavior. Everyone's excited about it. They're trying to make this work. Let's really put in some work here before the All-Star break.
I don't know, but I think maybe. I do think that's a thing I would be thinking about, which is I want to make a good impression on our new guy. But I was sitting watching the game thinking, I'll bet DeAndre Hunter's is every game like this? Is this what it is to be here?
We joked after the first game that he was probably sitting there being like, man, I was coming off the bench playing 28 minutes a game. I'm starting my first game in Cleveland. I got to get used to these minutes. And then Kenny's just like, no. Our starters don't do that here. You're going to be sitting in the fourth quarter. And this was absolutely another one of those sitting in the fourth quarter games. The Cavs came out with intensity right from the jump. The amazing thing is they started off red hot from three, but it wasn't like an outlier shooting game. I was actually getting ready to say, well, sometimes the shooting variance games go against us. Sometimes they go in our favor. This appears to be the latter. But really, 18 of 53, 34% from three. Nothing too remarkable there. They cooled off kind of as the game progressed. But I thought that their defensive intensity was there all night. I thought that they really kind of have been locked in these last two games on the defensive end of the court. I thought they were terrific against the Timberwolves. I thought they were terrific against Toronto. And, in this game, you really got a balanced scoring effort from all of the starters.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the three-point shooting, and really it was just Max and Sam who started out unbelievably hot. Both finished 4 of 10 apiece from the field. So they're 8 of 20. The rest of the team is 10 of 33. Darius and Donovan both have icy three-point shooting nights. And that really represents all the volume shooting on the current roster right now. With so many guys hurt and unavailable. So yeah, I mean, I just felt like it felt pretty unkind what the Cavs were doing on offense. This was a game. This was one of those games where you look up at the final score, you see 131 points on the board. And I remember like 10 separate plays where Jonathan Michael was getting ready to explode for a wide open three or whatever, and they just rimmed out. Like this could have easily been a 140, 145 type of offensive outing. And like that is crazy to say, that this team is just consistently, they got whatever they wanted. Darius was turning the corner every single time. His change of speed was cooking the Raptors every single time. Everyone was moving the ball. I mean, Max is throwing behind the back passes to a cutting Jarrett. The collective spirit of the team, I think, was really, really sharp tonight. And that's how you score 131 points, even when you only shoot 34% from three.
Yeah, and it was great to see the guards having the success that they did against the point of attack defense for the Raptors. Emmanuel Quickley is someone that I think his defense has fallen off a little bit, or maybe it was a little overstated in New York, but that's still, a lengthy guard that's able to provide pressure there. RJ Barrett's has a big size advantage over Donovan. And Jonathan Mobo, who is filling in for Jakob Poeltl, he's been really effective in gumming things up in pick and roll defense, like really showing hard, really being able to switch onto guards. And their pick and roll defense has been really strong in those spots. So to see that basically be a non-factor of, okay, like you're going to come over and help a little bit, boom, we're going to hit Max and he's going to go nuts from three. We're going to hit Sam. We're going to hit the open man. We're going to make the right play in these spots. They did a
great job attacking slips too. Whenever the Raptors were looking to put two on the ball at the point of attack to gum stuff up, Mobley would just kind of take that little step in, and Donovan or Darius would hit the float pass to them, and they were going up so aggressively with the lack of size that Toronto had in the paint to just get dunks over and over and over again. I mean, Mobley and Allen, they had 11 field goals. It felt like 7 or 8 of them were dunks.
It's so funny. They only took 18 shots too, right? Like they were really low volume, but they made the most of those possessions. And honestly, you mentioned Darius kind of turning the corner. I agree with you. Like I thought he got where he wanted to on the court, but I also kind of felt like it never really got out of second gear. Like I felt like he was kind of pacing himself throughout the night. When you talk about those momentum shots that didn't go down, I think a lot of that had to do with Darius. He just kind of had an off night from three. But overall, like
even Max, Max hits 4 in a row to start, and I don't think hit another 3.
Right?
Sam,
right.
I think went 5 of 7 to start, or I'm sorry, 4 of 5 to start, or something like that, and he ended up missing his next 4 or 5. So like It was definitely democratized misses by the end, but it just didn't feel bad ever.
Yeah, no, it really did. It was one of those shooting poorly, not playing poorly kind of performances. And, for Darius to have one of those, all right, like half speed kind of games and still get to where he wants, still, put up 15 points, 8 assists, 3 steals. Like he was contributing in so many different areas. I think it just goes to show you what a different place he's in physically this year, where it looks so hard for him to turn the corner. And now he's able to, against a lengthy, rangy team, while kind of, playing at a conservative pace.
Bro, I swear to God, I had that thought. The play where he absolutely put the burners on Jamal Shad. He stopped and then just burst to
and that guy's a hell of a defender.
Yeah, and he got so much separation with the dude right on his hip. It was I was like, he just couldn't rev down and then rev back up last year. It was just so one speed for him. And as we know, that's just not where his strengths lie. He's not a top end sprinter kind of dude. He ain't Tyrese Maxey. Mm-hmm. So he needs to be able to stop and start. And I think about the fact that even when he was quote unquote healthy, we would go watch that Magic series in person. And, within a quarter, he's got the heating pad on his back. He's got the wedge on his back. And, it's immediately wow, man, Darius is just it's just not going to be his year, is it? And think about how hard it is to do those kind of change of direction, quick burst moves when your back is seizing up on you. That's one of the hardest things to do. So, yeah, I haven't spent a lot of time noticing individual plays where I go, that's healthy Darius, because it's just been this collective thing. But for whatever reason, that play
we take it for granted now.
Yeah, well, that play where he really put the burners on Shad, who is the kind of defender who would have annoyed him a lot last year in his limited state. Just it wasn't even he wasn't even there.
Yeah, it really, really nice to see. And I thought Donovan was terrific as well. Not the greatest field goal percentage night for him, but I thought that he was playing with a ton of energy.
Moving the ball like a killer, man. Just a lot of hit aheads and yeah.
He's been making some brilliant passes lately, man. It is really, really fun to see him getting more and more and more comfortable this season. I really feel since that start of January lull, we now have a month straight of some of the best Donovan overall play that I've seen. And he broke out the explosive play. He had an and one dunk.
I'm telling you, he looks really good right now. He's looked pretty good all season, but athletically I do feel the knees must be feeling good, the legs must be feeling good, because he is rising up and yamming on people every other game right now.
Yeah, and we've discussed this on and off the podcast. I'm going to start conceding a little bit of ground. I do think that he looks better. He looks more explosive, or at least he's showcasing it more.
It looks like it's not hard. No. I think that's the difference. I think he's always able to get to his spots if he exerts himself. This is easy explosion. And and it's been really, really fun to see.
Yeah, I think he's been absolutely terrific. And, one of those things that we put a bookmark in earlier in the season was how it kind of felt like sometimes there were those possessions where Donovan was all right, this is a scoring opportunity for me. We've been playing the team ball. I need to get some of these reps in as a scorer. It feels so natural now. It is coming within the flow of the offense. I think he has a better understanding of where to pick his spots. I think Darius has a better understanding. It really, really is encouraging, because one of the consistent themes we've talked about these last few years is that they haven't been able to build upon their successes within the season, right? Whether it was injuries, whether it was instability in the lineup and availability, all that kind of stuff. It felt like they were almost simplifying what they were doing on offense and defense as a result of available personnel the last few years, and they weren't really building on the foundation. Sometimes they didn't even go back to the foundation that they had established earlier in the year, and those kind of pet sets that we really like to watch. This year, it feels like they're building upon it. It feels like they have goals that they want to accomplish in every game, and you can tell that they're experimenting with things. They're getting more comfortable, and as they find those sweet spots, as they find those balances and rhythm within various lineups, then they start to expand upon that, and it's really, really fun to watch.
Yeah, to your point about like the way they would kind of have to simplify, something I was thinking about with regards to Donovan's playmaking. I don't think there's a single metric that will support this. And it certainly, to me, like it just shows you how important it is to watch what you're seeing and not box score watch, because Donovan averaged way more assists last year. And I think Donovan is passing way better this year. Your thoughts?
I agree with that. Like, one of my big gripes was that, and I understood it out of necessity, but we did go to kind of that heliocentric offense, right? Like there wasn't a whole lot of initiating outside of Donovan when Darius and Mobley were out of the lineup. Darius wasn't really able to shoulder the same load that he normally did. Forget taking on an additional load last year. So I really thought that the reads Mitchell was making are kind of like those ones that are typical for heliocentric offense. All right, I got the floor spaced out with a bunch of shooters. I'm running pick and roll. I'm kicking it out to a guy. I'm hitting the roller. I feel like this year, with all the movement they have, all just kind of that second nature understanding of this is where my cutters are going to be. And I know that like this set is designed to manipulate the defense in this certain way, and I'm going to have these reads. Like I really feel like there's more advanced reads from Donovan this season, and the ball
quick
movement of this team,
quick connective passing that he's making, like he's making. I felt like, to your point, he was making the reads where I go, hey, you've sucked the defense in and you now can spray it to the corner. The kind of plays that that I'm looking for him to make. Whereas I feel like he's making the connective pass or the pass at a tempo or at a pace that I'm on a different rhythm, a faster rhythm, a faster processor. He's passing guys open. He is moving the ball in a way that destabilizes the defense more than he ever has. And I think that's where you have to give so much credit to Don and his general basketball maturity here, is because, there's a lot of guys who play their whole career and never get to that connective passing. They never get, especially guys who are on ball as much as Donovan has been on ball in his career. You just never have to learn to be a great connector because that's just not your job. But the fact that he is, as he's getting older, he's thinking the game at a higher level. I feel like it's really noteworthy. I feel it. And that's why I think that's why I'll always kind of push back against anyone who's using, overly leaning on box score metrics to make arguments for them. Because again, nowhere in the box score is it going to read that Donovan Mitchell is a better passer than he was last year. But my eyes are telling me he definitely is.
Yeah. And honestly, when I look around the NBA in today's game, I feel like there's some guys where, but before we go into matchup, I usually like to look up the stats, see how the teams have been trending and whatnot, what their schedule's been like and all that. I feel like there's some players where their stats really jump out when you look at the box score and then you watch it occur and you're like, oh my God, this is how they go about doing that? It really feels forced. Whereas the Cavs, I feel like the style of basketball that they play, the way that they play off of each other is so much more impressive than the individual numbers. And the numbers are really impressive. When you look at the per 36 and all that and, kind of account for the fact that they've blown out teams and get to sit in fourth quarters, they're all up there. It's been really impressive. But I do feel like, particularly if you've been riding with this team for a long time, and you've seen where they started from 2 years ago when Donovan first got there, or, if you were watching back in the first season where it was Darius and Jared as the All-Stars, it just is so impressive to see how they've rounded out their games and how they've rounded out their games in ways to complement one another. And I think it is bringing out the best in everybody. I think you see it in the growth in playmaking from Evan, Jared, Donovan. I think you see it even with Darius in being more aggressive from three And like, what was the other thing? We wanted him to take more threes. We wanted him to step up on the defensive end, which he has absolutely done. And we're hopeful that, hey, maybe he's going to finish a little bit better at the rim. His previous career best finishing at the rim, Carter, was 56.3% back in 2021-22. This year, it is up to 62%, 6% better than his previous career high. That is a massive, massive change for him. I feel like he is absorbing contact better than ever. And also just the opportunities that he's getting at the rim are higher quality because of the balanced offense.
That's what I was just about to jump in and say is so much of this is the 3-point volume and the panic that he's inducing as a 3-point shooter and leveraging that panic. I mean, the reality is he was taking, like last year, he was taking some no shot layup attempts. Like the kind of stuff that like even Kyrie doesn't finish well on because of the fact that, you know, his body wasn't quite right. You know, everything was kind of not where it was and guys were on his hip. He's getting easy layups. That's not to say he's not, you know, the floater hasn't been amazing on all that stuff, but like not all floaters are made equally, you know, not all layup attempts are made equally. And he's getting like, I'm not being contested 7 feet from the rim floaters because of the shape of this offense, because of the panic that he's inducing at that 3-point line. So it's like, so, you know, yes, he's definitely absorbing contact better. I do agree with that. Like he's had more finishes through contact, but like, I think that represents maybe like 10% of the portfolio. The other 90% is the context he's in makes his life easy. And the context he creates for himself makes his life easy.
Yeah, and you know, we're not always in position to make life easier for ourselves. That's why it's handy to have tools like Zoom AI Companion, because only you can do your best work. Zoom AI Companion can help you do the rest, like automatically taking notes, answering meeting questions, and helping you respond to your coworker. Available at no additional cost with eligible paid plans. Work happy with Zoom AI Companion.
Brother.
That one felt nice.
Yeah, that was great. People love it when you compliment yourself. You know, but it was.
You want another compliment? I was trying so hard not to laugh during that read.
that's good. We got to talk about DeAndre Hunter, who, you know, he had a nice quiet debut, you know, a low usage debut where he, you know, puts up 12 points on 7 field goal attempts in 23 minutes. I did feel like this was the kind of the inverse of like, hey, Ty Jerome's out. We're going to need a little bit more usage out of you. And he ends up scoring 18 points on 12 field goal attempts, 4 of 9 from 3, and really started to show the, you know, the volume 3-point shooting. I mean, 9 3-point attempts in 27 minutes is a lot for a big wing like that. What did you think of his game?
Well, not only was 9 3-point attempts really nice, what I liked as well was the 5 rebounds. And in addition to that, there were 2 other possessions where he was fighting for the offensive board. Toronto player knocked it out of bounds and the Cavs got possession. That little bit of extra effort and stuff like that, that is one of those kind of swing things that, you know, it wasn't always there in Atlanta, but we have seen him average, you know, 5 rebounds for a playoff series. I believe his career average in the playoffs is 4.5. He can be around that 5 rebound marker and create some extra possessions and, you know, create havoc with his length. That's going to create opportunities for Jarrett to get offensive rebounds. It's going to create opportunities for Evan to get those rebounds. And they out-rebounded Toronto on the offensive glass 13-9. I thought he was definitely a part of that. But what blows me away is how seamless the fit is. It feels so natural with him out there. There's not the miscommunications of, oh, I thought you were going to kind of rise up and you went down to the corner and I passed it out of bounds. There isn't the, oh, you know, messed up the coverage and there's a little bit of communication back and forth with him and a teammate. It looks like he's been playing on this team since the beginning of the year. Like it really, and it doesn't always look like that when you bring in a new piece. It almost never does. You know, I'm
a little different than the
by
Antoine Jameson debut.
I was literally about to go there. You know, I'm still haunted by Antoine Jameson and how that looked. This just like you knew on paper that this would be a very, very good fit and something that both of us really wanted to see. I was looking through our old off-season messages in the Discord and whatnot. 7 months ago, I was saying, let's go get DeAndre Hunter. This is some of that we've had our eye on for a long time. And man, like I really can't get over how well and how natural the fit is. And I feel like there's still, there's room to grow here, obviously, as he gets more comfortable, as Kenny learns to, unlock him in different ways. I really feel like him being used as a screener is something that can really kind of get this offense to pop even more. I'm blown away by how good it looks.
Yeah, you know what I was thinking while I was watching the game, and I was watching on DVR, so like it's always a little bit of a different experience. But I was sitting watching him thinking, it's not like we didn't have games where George or Karras, would come in and be that, hit a few backbreaker threes, score 18 points in 27 minutes. And so it's like, it's not like we didn't have those highs in our prior roster construction, but I do feel like it's nice to know that, like, I do feel like in a lot of ways we keep the highs, but when he's not in that zone, you get all the floor raising stuff too, of just being able to come over and contest a jumper, helping off of his own man. He's able to just be an extra set of long arms for boards. He's able to switch and allow you to play, these Mondo size and tough lineups. Like they're playing a Jalen, DeAndre, I think Evan lineup. I was like, man, that's just a lot of perimeter toughness and size. And we're missing Okoro and Dean still for those kind of lineups. So I just feel like, we've talked a lot about how he raises the ceiling for the Cavs. But, in a lot of ways, I think what it is the floor is just going to be really, really high, which means that when he has these games where, 18 points on 12 shots is like, that's a good game, but but within the context of this Cavs team, it takes them from good to unfair really, really fast. And if that and his baseline is going to be closer to that on a night to night basis. So again, the fit is just like a glove. He looks really, really comfortable out there already, and he's got a full week just to go, like, get his life settled, get more terminology, learn more film, and really start plugging himself into this Cavs ecosystem. It's really exciting.
Yeah, it is. And, the nice thing about DeAndre Hunter and him really establishing himself as a proven scorer at this point is I also feel like it gives you a little bit of insurance, right? It gives you some insurance of, okay, Darius has an off game where the shots aren't falling, or Evan doesn't necessarily have it. It's another guy that you can go to that's going to be able to rise up. Like some of the shots he hits over guys, man, like it's nuts. And he shoots.
They just haven't had this archetype for a really long time.
No, honestly, the closest we've had is Lowry. Right? Like a guy that's able to come off a curl, hit an above the break three, and it doesn't matter that someone's coming out to contest. Like the way that he's able to shoot above the break is really, really impressive. If you sag off him, he's going to pull up and shoot. And, when you look at him within the spacing of this Cavs offense, he's not the best ball handler. Like that was one of the kind of limitations and things we talked about after the trade. But he's able to get some of these straight line drives to the basket just because the floor is so spaced. They have to respect the shot. And, he's made some nice passes out of those situations. He's made some really nice finishes up high off the glass with touch. Like, really, really, really encouraged by the fit. And like I said, I think him being used as a screener is something that I'm really excited for. It's something that he's done well throughout his career. I don't think at any point in his career has he set a screen for a 7-foot big man, but he might be doing that with Evan Mobley. He might be, setting screens with the guards or whatever. Like,
which, by the way, sorry, a quick thing on that, because I don't want to forget. If teams are stashing their point guard, if you're playing the Knicks and Brunson's guarding him, and he goes and sets an inverted ball screen for Evan Mobley, tell me that's not going to be buckets over and over and over again.
Yeah. That was one of the things that I asked Kobe about in his availability, right? Was, hey, teams traditionally have stashed their point guard on our small forward and used their wings to defend Donovan and Darius. If Hunter's out there, that's a really tough thing to do. He's a proficient post-up player. He's someone that can be used in the screen game. As you said, if he's screening for Mobley in those spots, you're going to be able to generate some advantages there. So
yeah, because like one of the reasons the guard screen is hard is like, like if Darius or Donovan is screening for Evan, like that's been a really good set. Sam screening for him, really good set. Don't get me wrong, but like it's still like a small guard trying to pick a really big dude, Yeah. Whereas if Hunter, who is the size of most power forwards, is screening Evan's man and Jalen Brunson is the backline defender, like that just gets real tough. And that really is gonna crunch in the defense. Evan is such a good playmaker. Like they just got so many options, dude. This team is really good.
You know where I really felt his length? When he was standing next to Scotty Barnes, and I'm like, oh my God, he's bigger than Scotty. like, holy smokes, man. Like, what they're going to be able to do to unlock him is really exciting to see. And, we're operating from such a high baseline too, right? Like you're coming into the All-Star break, you have the number 1 offense in the league, you have the number 8 defense. And it's not like they've just been doing this against weaker competition either. If you look at how the offense has performed against top 10 defenses, number 1 offense versus top 10 defenses, they are plus 3.4 points better than second place, which is a tie between the Knicks and the Thunder. Their 8th ranked defense on the season, it's not like they're just clamping, the Torontos of the world either. They're actually better against top 10 offenses. They have the 5th best defense against top 10 offenses. So they are rising to the occasion in those spots. I think sometimes people have over-indexed on games that haven't gone their way, right? Like the OKC game was one of those. Boston,
the Houston games.
One of those
they
scored
well.
Yeah. One of them they scored well. Both of them they had a chance to win. But they have competed well in a lot of these games against higher level competition. And, we are going to really put those losses under the microscope because that's our opportunity to really learn and assess what they need to do. But they've performed so damn well. And it's not just a strength of schedule thing.
Yeah, they are really good, man. And Hunter, again, does feel really additive. He raises the floor, and he doesn't take anything off the ceiling, and in some cases raises the ceiling. Man, what a great addition so far. We still haven't really, and again, we still haven't even seen one of those kind of marquee games. The guy averages 19 points a game right now. He hasn't hit his average yet with this team.
No.
So
he hasn't hit the old minutes per game average either, which might be a continuing theme.
But you know what I mean? Like we're gonna see 25 to 30 point games for Hunter, and those games are gonna feel another level of like, oh come on, for the opponents.
I did get one of those texts during game from a buddy that's a Raptors fan. It's like, how do you guys have this guy? Like, it looks so seamless out there, and it's interesting too because when you look at kind of the lineup data through this, I don't want to say half of the season because we're really like 3/4 of the way through. But when you look at it prior to the All-Star break, one of the most used combinations that the Cavs had outside of the core is that Merrill Niang combo. They played 500 minutes together. They have a plus 11.4 net rating in that time. I think it would surprise people that they have a 106.3 defensive rating. Those lineups have done really well. In particular, they really were effective with Donovan and Evan, plus 15.3 with them in 215 minutes, plus 2.4 with Darius and Allen in 110 minutes, which again goes to that point I made before about how Darius and Jarrett tend to get, the funky lineups. Like when Kenny's like, all right, Greg Porter Jr. and Jalen Tyson, you're out there. Normally it's Darius and Jarrett that are carrying those lineups. But I do think, as we talk about Hunter looking so good to start things off here, we do have to account for the fact that one of our go-to combinations needs to be replaced. And, he certainly seems like an adequate replacement in that spot. But I'm interested to see, those staggered lineups with DeAndre Hunter out there.
Yeah, I gotta say, like that was, those lineups, even though the metrics were always really good for them defensively, they angsted me a little bit, Justin. And like when it's Darius or Donovan and Sam in the backcourt, having three tough defenders behind them just makes Sam's life easier. And you're not just at this, because I didn't always feel like I felt some of the limitations of those lineups on the first shot, but I did feel like I saw it on offensive rebound attempts, like when the play got scrambled or the shell got broken, it just felt like the Cavs couldn't catch up. It was just Niang trying to dig someone out or Merrill trying to dig someone out, and like when those guys aren't in that optimal situation, I just think it gets really hard for them. Whereas like now I feel like their ability to recover, get back into their shell goes way up. And again, it's not because Hunter is such a great rebounder. Niang's rebound rate is better than his, at least for this season. But like you've just got a little bit more size, versatility. Oh crap, they knocked the ball out, and now Hunter is having to close out on the shooting guard, and we cover everyone's getting cross matched again behind the play. It's just different, and there's a flexibility there they just didn't have before. So I'm really excited about all the things he does to the lineups. And again, this is way before Dean and Isaac come back. So like I just feel like Kenny is just going to have such a wealth. I wouldn't be surprised, man, to see in the last 20 games if we're the best or second best defense in the league.
Yeah, I think it's completely on the table, right? I think it'll be interesting to see. They've got some tougher matchups down the stretch. They played the Knicks 3 times, which I'm really interested to see how those matchups go. But to your point of what Hunter can do to stabilize those lineups, you look at the early returns of when Donovan and Evan are off the court, and it's Darius, Hunter, and Jarrett. They have an 89.7 defensive rating.
Ooh, like baby.
Those lineups are getting it done on the defensive end. And, one of my favorite lineups that Kenny went to against Toronto was when we had both guards out there with Max, Hunter, and Evan. That just feels unfair. Like that is one of those kind of shift down lineups. Give Jared a little bit of a breather, and you're not giving up anything from a length perspective. As I mentioned before, like he is bigger than Scotty out there, and with the ball handling, the shot creation, the shooting, at every single position, pretty much. That's a devastating look that they can go to, and I'm just so excited to not only be able to have that as a potential option, but also being able to replicate that a little bit with Dean, right? Like you're able to really have a strong rebounder, defender, shooter out there, and Dean Wade at the 4 in those staggered lineups. You're able to potentially go to some strong point of attack defense with Isaac Okoro at the 2. Like there's just so many different ways that you can go about it. And
it was already a team that didn't play any bad lineups, and their lineups got better and more interesting and more versatile. And like we are really at the 48 minutes of hell part of the program,
Yeah.
And what's cool,
that was going to be the name of the podcast originally.
Oh, that's nice. Well, it still can be. I think that there is like, the thing that's cool about it too, though, is some teams where you have the 48 minutes of hell, it's like, well, we got to have all 10 guys or, playing there all sorts of different ways to like make all the lineups work just right. Whereas I feel like in a tight series where there's a bad matchup, Kenny can drop down to 9 or 8 in the rotation, no problem. And lineups will still make sense. Lineups will still work. And that is a real ace, that's a real ace that he can pull out of the deck that just like trumps everything. Like he doesn't have to just play one way or one kind of rotation to not have any weak points on the floor. And that's really, really nice. I feel like it holds up to regular season scrutiny and postseason scrutiny.
Yeah, and it's funny that we've talked so much about Isaac as a trickle-down effect of getting DeAndre Hunter. But one thing that I'm really excited about is if it's primarily DeAndre Hunter, Max Strus, and Dean Wade playing those kind of power forward or small forward minutes, those front court minutes for the Cavs, and Isaac's playing at the 2, we talked about how that can give him some defensive freedom. But I think one of the underrated impacts of this is you can't really sag off a guard the same way that you can when someone's playing at the 3. Like when Isaac's in the corner, okay, I can sag off of him, particularly if it's on the weak side, and get into the paint. You don't see that above the break, right? Like you can't really do that with guards. Yeah. And,
the short corner is a place for the defense to hide too, because they don't have to close out as far to get to that 3-point arc.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that's why you see, some of these defensive specialists at the guard positions, whether it's a TJ McConnell, Jalen Suggs, all these guys that don't really have that established 3-ball, it doesn't really impact the spacing as much as the other positions. And I think Isaac has proven himself to be a much, much better shooter. I'm not going to hold those 5 games where he clearly wasn't himself against him. We got a 3-year sample of him shooting at 39% here. But I do think just from a matchup standpoint, it's tougher to sag off of him in that way. And I really, really am interested to see how Kenny deploys them, because there are no real bad options, right? Like it's so fun to see. And, I think there was some talk about Max Strus rejoining the starting lineup. After,
let's talk about it.
Yeah, let's go over kind of some of the lineup data here going into the All-Star break, because I do think that they have a bunch of really good options. I'm not going to go away from my argument that I would like to see DeAndre Hunter as the starter. But let's do a thought exercise here and make an argument for each one of these guys, because I think the main 3 guys you hear people talk about, DeAndre Hunter, Max Strus, and Dean Wade. I think going over that would be helpful. So you start. Where do you want to go here?
Bananas after how good Isaac was with the starters. He's not even in the conversation right now.
Yes.
But yeah, I guess I'll start with Max, because Max is the guy that I am, the most aligned with. So couple things. And really, in a lot of ways, I'm thinking about Boston. I'm going to be thinking about Boston until we beat Boston. Like that's kind of where I'm at. And we had a little argument in the Discord today where some people are like, well, you want Hunter because you got him to go guard Boston and guard the Tatums and the Browns of the world. And I get that. However, the starters against Boston with Max have been very good. They are winning their minutes. And if you listen to our post game podcast, in both the second and the third game, the one we won and the one we lost, I was pretty openly fretting about how we don't have a great option to handle Porzingis when we only have one big on the floor. Okay? Because you switch one action and then he's catching it on the nail with a guard on his hip, and Niang protecting the back line because Jarrett or Evan is out on the other opposite wing, chasing Jaylen Brown around or something like that. So if you want to switch the way the Cavs have been switching this year, a lot of the times against the Celtics, you're putting yourself in a really rough spot with Porzingis on the floor when you only had one big and you didn't have the second one to protect the back line. So if you start Max, you are playing your starters with 2 bigs on the floor. And, I think they've handled Boston really, really well on the defensive end in those lineups. The numbers support that. Looking at your rundown, you already pulled the numbers for me, which is that Garland, Mitchell, Max, and Mobley this year have played 12 minutes against Boston, 66 D rating. Obviously, it's not going to be that low, but I think I haven't watched them and felt like they've been getting cooked. So
yeah, and last year in the playoffs without Jared Allen, which you would think would be a very tough position to be in, 70 minutes, 109.6 defensive rating. That would be the second best defense in the league last season. So without Jared Allen, that lineup not only won its minutes, but were elite on the defensive end.
So obviously no Porzingis in that series, which is important to note, because that is who I am the most worried about, if I'm frank, in these one big lineups. So if I think the starters are doing fine against Boston starters, especially on the defensive end of the floor, which is what I care most about against that team, then what you can do is your second unit can be Hunter and Wade coming on the floor to help accommodate for the fact that you're losing one of Mobley or Allen. And I think that group is super equipped to switch like crazy against Boston and to make their second unit lineups a little more punchless, a little more stymied, force them to go into the same ISO stuff that we've successfully baited them into without having to put 2 on the ball. So that's why I think I tend to lean towards Max. Plus, the reality is they're just kicking the snot out of teams, dude. Like, it's got to matter at some point that, we're not at the point where the sample is big enough. But the starters with Max is now the team's third most played lineup, even though they've only played 9 games together. They've played 97 minutes. They have a plus 32.3 net rating. They're putting up 127 points per 100 possessions. They're allowing 95. Now, maybe those defensive numbers are noisy and they'll come up a little, but like until I see, this was what I wanted last year from this lineup. I wanted them to prove that Jarrett and Evan could anchor just about any combination, and what they really needed was volume 3-point scoring punch, the extra playmaking that Strus provides, the Strus-Mobley 2-man game, and I just think that they can find extra supplements elsewhere with Hunter off the bench and Wade off the bench. I think it just gives them a lot more flexibility based on what the game is telling them they need. So I want to see. I'm not out. I think they would be very good with Hunter at the starting 3. I don't think it's a bad choice, but especially while Kenny is making the choice, I'm going to give him that benefit of the doubt because this lineup is kicking the snot out of teams.
Yeah, I mean, that really is the best part of this is I don't think there's necessarily a wrong decision from Kenny Atkinson.
All 3 of these lineups would be better than last year's starting 5's net rating.
All 4, really,
yes.
Because even if you went to Isaac Okoro, that's been a plus 10 net rating if you look at the cleaning the glass stats. If I was to make an argument for Max, other than the fact that lineup's been awesome, particularly when you're talking about that Boston series, kind of strengthening your point here is if you're going to have minutes with Max Strus at the small forward and you're going to be a little smaller, having Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen there to back up those minutes is very, very valuable. I've seen people mention Dean Wade, right? Like, let's get the 6'10" guy out there for defense, but it has to matter at some point that they have been better defensively with Max. I think Dean Wade is a better defensive player when he's playing at the 4. I think he can defend down to the 3, but I'm more interested in that when it's a switch situation, right? Like when you talk about those the possibility of playing him next to DeAndre Hunter with one of the big men, you can switch DeAndre Hunter and Dean Wade easily there, right? Like you are not ceding an advantage to the opposition in those spots. And when you look at the numbers, sure, as you said, maybe the defensive rating with Max, there's some noise there this season. It's only 210 possessions when I'm looking at it on cleaning the glass. But if you look back, including last year, it is 975 possessions, and it is a 108.3 defensive rating. That is more than 4 points better than the Dean Wade defensive rating if you look at not only this season, which is 112.7, but if you look at his career, every minute he's played with the core 4, it's a 112.6. So the Max Strus lineup has been better defensively. So I think if you're making an argument for Max, it's that. And it also ties into what we've talked about before, where, if Dean Wade isn't available, then you have a backup 4 option that isn't Jalen Tyson, or playing Max at power forward to alleviate your fears of playing him at small forward. So, I think that would be the argument for Max. Now, I will turn the tables on you and I will make my argument for DeAndre Hunter. Getting him acclimated with the core 4 is incredibly important. I do think on paper, the best 5 players we can put together is with DeAndre Hunter at small forward. The issue is our core 4 only plays about 12 minutes together. So if he is not starting, there are not going to be opportunities for him to play with them. Unless Kenny Atkinson's doing something where Max starts the game and DeAndre starts the second half with them, you're just not going to get an opportunity to get those reps. Sure, you're going to be able to mix some of that in. He's going to get more comfortable playing off of Darius, and he's going to get more comfortable playing off of Donovan when they're playing in those staggered situations. But if he's not starting, there's just not an opportunity here. And, there's 28 games left. Kenny Atkinson said 10 to 15 games is usually kind of his marker for on, the long end of the spectrum here for how long it takes him to get a feel for a player, to understand how he, what he's comfortable with, how best to use him. You're going to start running out of time to make that change and to really get those reps in. So I think whether you're starting him or not, you almost kind of have to make a conscious decision to get him some reps with those guys, just so that the first time that you're doing it, with any frequency is the postseason, right? Like that's, as much as that fit is seamless, that's something that I'd like to see ironed out a little bit in the regular season here.
I think that's a really, really good point. I think the 12 minutes a game thing is really, really smart. And I'll add one piece of context just so I don't just end up repeating your points a lot, because I think they're all really, really good. I was DMing with a friend of the pod, Ben Cox, Cavs Twitter legend, and he said something that I thought was really funny. He said, "It would just kill me to be pining for a legit NBA small forward wing and then not start him." And there is a little bit of that of like, we've just been like, I think we could use a big wing. I think we could really use a big wing. I think we could really use a big wing with a little scoring and playmaking, a little size, and then we get one and we go, all right, enjoy the bench, brother. Like there is like something part of my kind of animal brain that says maybe you should start, where it's like, to your point, like it is like the best five guys, archetypally on the team. So I do get the point, I guess like ultimately where I keep going back to the Max thing is I just want to see it, taken, but it's really hard for Hunter to take it because Max is going to stay really good. Those lineups are going to stay really good. And to your point about the minutes, DeAndre isn't going to get 100 minutes through the end of the year with these guys. With that, if they're only playing those 12 minutes to get a game together. So I got to say, this is the most I've felt swayed. You did a good job.
All right, I'm happy to do that, and maybe there is going to be more opportunities down the stretch, because when you look at, all right, you got a bunch of games against the Knicks, you got another game against Boston, you're probably going to have fourth quarters where these guys are actually playing basketball rather than sitting with a 25-point lead, right? So, maybe there's going to be more opportunities than I anticipate, but that's one of those things that I'm thinking about, and I already made my feelings clear that if we have to play Jalen Tyson as backup forward because Dean's not available, it does sound like Dean's going to be available after the All-Star break, at least to start. I'm okay with giving Jalen Tyson those reps. I'm okay with, what we're going to be able to do around that to still be very good in those minutes. Let's, devil's advocate once again, because, what I feel and what I think the right decision are can be different things, right? Like I actually think Kenny Atkinson continuing to go with Max right now, that's probably the right decision. I would like to see the change at some point because, my beliefs about what the best five-man combination is, but messing with the lineup that's been really good, putting DeAndre out of a role that he's, or keeping
playing
DeAndre
the best
in the role
bat,
that he's been very comfortable in. Like, I completely understand that argument, but let's, from a devil's advocate kind of point of view, go with Dean Wade. Now, I still feel like if you are opening the floor to all options beyond Max Strus and DeAndre Hunter, I think Isaac has a better case than Dean Wade, just because the lineup data has been so much better with Isaac compared to Dean, even going back to previous seasons. But I do think if you want to make an argument for Dean Wade, it is that, one, very good defensive player. I still feel he's better at the 4 than he is at the 3, but he is able to do that. And that's also going to be the lineup that has the most juice. You have Darius Garland out there. You have Donovan Mitchell. You have Evan Mobley. They're all able to generate offense. And when you've lost some scoring punch off the bench with Karis LeVert and George Niang, having a knockdown shooter, Max Strus, having a big scoring threat coming in off the bench in DeAndre Hunter, you are replacing some of that. You are giving that juice to the second lineups and trusting your star players to do their part with the starting lineup. So that's probably my best argument. I still think it should be between Max and DeAndre Hunter. That's what I feel most comfortable with. But if you want to make an argument for Dean, I think that's the smarter argument to make, rather than the defensive argument that folks have made, which just does not hold up to the numbers, whether you're talking regular season or when you're talking playoffs, relative to a guy like Max Strus, who has done better in that role.
Yeah, I think it's a good case. I think the fact, like, hey, if you're gonna have a ton of playmaking in your starting lineup that's all doing well, then stashing your lowest usage guy in that lineup does make some sense, because he's going to use the ball. He's going to need the ball less than Max or DeAndre. However, what I will say is, and I know you're not, you don't think this, but like, this is a team whose offense has crashed out at the worst time, So like, I don't really want to take that playmaking off the floor. I do think you're underrating the defense a little bit. I do think this is one of those things where I think there's enough noise and weirdness with lineup data that I think their best option defensively is Dean, Evan, and Jarrett, because of what it does for them from a switching perspective. Because it allows.
You don't think DeAndre's better in that spot?
I think Dean's physicality and rebounding is a little bit better right now, but
okay.
that's just kind of chasing metrics right now, And I just made the case earlier in the podcast against doing that, but I just don't know DeAndre well enough yet.
Yeah.
So to some extent, I have to kind of use the metrics, the lack of rebounding, the lack of kind of impact plays in terms of steals and blocks. I have to use that a little bit against him.
Yep.
Who do I trust more if right now, if Mobley gets switched on to onto a guard and Jarrett is getting pulled into the short corner because they've got Kristaps Porzingis there? Who do I trust to protect the rim more on a quick rotation, Dean or DeAndre? Right now it's Dean. And again, I'm pretty open to that changing, because I just don't know DeAndre that well yet, and he's only played 2 games with us and they've both been laughers, so it's really hard to really know. But like, that is my kind of case for Dean as a defender, is I trust him in a we've gotten switched to absolute hell and now Dean's got to go guard a 5 in the last 5 seconds of the shot clock. I trust him more to do that stuff. Again, he's still my distant third here, but I do see the defensive case, even if the metrics don't always show it.
Yeah, and I think the other interesting component of this is the trickle-down effect from a rotation standpoint, right? Because if Max is starting and you have DeAndre Hunter and Dean Wade coming in off the bench, you're probably deciding initially, when you're talking about that second guard spot, either Ty Jerome or Sam Merrill, right? Like, let's get Sam out there to get a little bit of shooting juice, right? And he's been playing so well from a two-way perspective this year. You might be inclined to go that route. If you are starting DeAndre Hunter and it's Max Strus and Dean Wade coming in off the bench, then I think it's a Ty Jerome or Isaac Okoro type of situation. Okay, like, we've got shooting in Max. Dean can space the floor. Let's get some defense out there. Like, you're almost at that point. If you're bringing a shooter in off the bench, it's kind of hard to give like Sam Merrill as many minutes when you can just give that to Max Strus as your shooter coming in off the bench, who I think is just a more versatile, well-rounded player. So I don't envy Kenny Atkinson with these decisions, but I do think sometimes too much is made of who is starting rather than who is finishing, and also just kind of the trickle-down effects throughout the rotation. Like, I think
more
sometimes people just love to see that graphic and like make sure like we're putting our best foot forward and whatnot, when really it's about maximizing 48 minutes of what your team is able to accomplish.
Yeah, more than anything, I just trust Kenny Atkinson right now to make the correct lineup decisions. So like, even if you sway me over to team start Hunter, like if Kenny starts Max, until I feel like he is, until I see him for the first time stick with a lineup that does not work, I just am going to give him the benefit of the doubt because he's had the magic touch. He's had the Midas touch. Every lineup he plays turns to gold, you know? I mean, a Sam Merrill, George Niang lineup has an 86 D rating, you know? Like, I don't know. Keep doing what you're doing, Kenny. Even if I'm not so sure about it, it's working. So, like, who the hell am I to challenge him?
And, you know, we've talked about this before, but I think one of my favorite aspects of this is that Kenny Atkinson's going to be so open in the post-game pressers, right? Like, he's going to let you know exactly what the thought process is, and whether you agree with it or not, you're going to be informed as a fan.
I think that extends to the players too, you know, like
big time.
If you've
got being this transparent with us, it's another level with those guys.
Yeah, like and like, I mean, I've had a lot of, you know, times in my professional life where, you know, if my boss wants to do something and I really don't agree with it, but they're making their case and like, this is why we're doing this. Here are the things I'm hoping to get out of this decision. Like, when you get that kind of clear communication, it just makes it easier to buy in, even to a thing that like you might not want.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, you know, as much as I love giving Kenny Atkinson props, and I think he's done a terrific job this year, his job is made so much easier by the fact that there is always one of Darius and Donovan and one of Evan and Jared out there. Like, I think we should not
good
take
roster.
You know, once again, Kobe, pat yourself on the back. I'm sure he listens. But, you know, really,
he certainly listens to the 1 hour, 10-minute mark.
You know, I really,
we could say anything about Kobe and he wouldn't know about it.
I really do think it puts them in such a good position. And, you know, that's one of the really, really fortunate things with our roster design is it is so balanced. It has those built-in redundancies of always being able to get something from one of those guys at a high level. And I'm just so interested to see how everyone else slots into it, because I do think that there's a lot of interesting combinations. Before we get out of here, Carter, I need to get your thoughts. The Cavs currently are on a 67 win pace. That would be a franchise record. In order to get that, they will need to go 23-5 the rest of the way. Or if you want to break it down into little segments, a little 8-2 here, a little 8-2 there, and a 7-1 to close it out. Do you think they get the franchise all-time win record?
I gotta say, I don't think they're gonna get it. I think they're gonna take their foot off the gas at some point, and I think they're going to match it. I think they're gonna win 66 games. I want to say yes. I want to go cheerleader, but you know, I feel it in my plums, Justin. I don't know if they're gonna do it.
Will be shocked to hear that I'm going cheerleader. They are hitting it on the nose. 67 wins. You heard it here first. I will continue to be the one that is correct on this podcast. Thank you very much for ceding that lane to me, Carter. I really do appreciate it.
You're welcome, brother. That's really all I wanted for you.
Yeah, well, you know, if you're going to seed a late, if you're going to blitz, and if you're going to pressure full court late, I'm going to dunk it. It's what us Canadians do. Big thanks to everyone that tuned in live on YouTube. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Click that notification bell so you know when we're going live. If you're listening via podcast and you want to support us, leave us a rating, leave a review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. If you want to be part of Chasetown's exclusive Discord chat, send a screenshot of that review to chasetownpod@gmail.com. However you choose to support us, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there. Until next time, go Cavs.